Hi everybody. Thank you for joining our third growth mindset session. I'm sure people will still be joining. I've got a couple of people, parents with me in the classroom. We're in Mr. Markey's classroom today. So I'll hand over to Liz.
Thank you so much. Yeah, people are still joining, which is fantastic. It's great when we can maintain the numbers in terms of people attending. I hope you're finding it all interesting, food for thought, fruitful, however you want to describe it, which is great. I'll introduce the session focus in a second. I'll just get these few people in and then share. People get themselves settled. Okay. Right, I've not got anyone waiting at the moment, so I shall introduce what we're going to be doing. Okay, so let me click on here. Right, so today's focus, and this is a focus that to me is really, really paramount because the language we use, either ourselves in terms of our internal dialogue and our thought processes, and the language that then becomes our verbal influences. It influences ourselves ultimately, but we also influence those around us, whether it be our children, colleagues at work, family members. We are influencing mindset every minute of every day. And whoever you come into contact with, you will be influencing. So language plays a huge part in lots of different ways. Now, we're obviously having a bit of a whistle-stop tour on this. I have 4 hours of training on this. So I've brought it together in terms of, as a parent, what I would have felt valuable if I'd have known about mindset 8 years ago. So I've sort of brought it together to sort of, I want it to be reflective. Okay. Oh, we've got a couple more coming in. Brill. Right, so the first thing I want to show you though is a video clip. And last week I was sat on my settee at home and I was watching the One Show. And on the One Show were a group of people like they always have, but it was Sarah Davis from Dragon's Den. So she's one of the dragons. And she started talking. And it was really interesting because as she was talking, she referred to something that I got very excited about. And therefore, I had to pause it, rewind it, and I've recorded it. And I've recorded my initial response. So just have a little listen and you'll understand why I got a bit giddy. Okay, so let me just share this with you.
When you started selling rubber stamps, didn't you, and you were on like a work placement in uni, what did you learn from that first job that you then took forward?
Oh, you see, that's chapter one, giving it away. No, I think I approach this, and this is the whole thing about stories from my life is, it's not what somebody gives you, it's what you take from an experience. And that work experience year for me wasn't what anyone gave me in that year. It's I went in there with a growth mindset, with my eyes wide open.
Yes!
Sponge and soak everything up. And then I share with you all the tools and techniques that I use.
That's my response to it because she responded with, we hear a lot of people talk about mindset, but for her to refer to growth mindset, which is what I've been hammering on about since 2018, 62 years at school prior to that, was brilliant. So that was my response. Hope you found that a little amusing. Right, we've got more coming in, so brilliant. Right, so today's focus on language, but that video sets the scene a little bit because she talks about experiences, and it's not what people give to you, it's what you take from experiences. And therefore, I want to show you this graphic because I think this sort of highlights this highlights it even more. So have a little look at this, okay? Just absorb it, how you perceive it. Okay. And I think what Sarah Davis is referring to here is that often we find ourselves on the left-hand side in terms of things can be a bit stormy sometimes. We can experience curveballs in life. We can experience struggle and setbacks. And at the time, it's not what you wanted because of the emotions connected with it, maybe, or it sets us back, or the fixed mindset fires up here. Okay. But actually, when you go through that process, in terms of what you take from the experience, depending on your mindset, it's maybe actually what you needed, okay? Because from it, you will grow. And I always say you grow through what you go through, and you really do. But it depends how you experience the learning blocks. So I'm just bringing these back in, because the learning blocks, if they appear under the storm cloud, it's how we approach them. If we approach them with a fixed mindset, we will make hard things harder, okay? Because we will. If we're telling ourselves unhelpful thoughts towards these opportunities, that will be our barrier. If we approach it, like she said, with a growth mindset, that is a very different perspective, and it is all about perspective. Okay, so I just wanted to sort of highlight this, but also highlight how do we respond as parents when we experience this, but also when our children are here. So I'm going to break this into two parts. So the first thing I want to mention is, how do we role model when we are here? Okay, so as parents, how do we approach the learning blocks? Do we approach them sometimes with our fixed mindset, and therefore we're role modeling behaviours around challenge, effort, mistakes, feedback with that fixed mindset behaviour and reaction? Okay, and the more you learn about your own mindset, it becomes who you are. 10 years ago, I knew nothing about mindset, and therefore responded to these learning blocks with my fixed mindset, because it was a habit, and it was how my mind had been molded from birth to 22. Now I have really developed my mindset and changed my perspective and rewired my brain to sort of approach things with more of a growth orientated outlook, put it that way. When I'm under, and I do go under these clouds, you know, I'm not happy clapping somersaults every minute of the day. I experience a fixed mindset, but what I do is internalize the experience differently. So I look at them with a growth mindset eyes. So that's the first thing. As parents, how do we do it? But then, how do we respond when our children are here? So I broke this into little categories that I resonate with as a parent. So the first thing is, all parents want to protect their children, okay? And we want to show them love and affection. We want to keep them safe. But in doing so, very often, we can magnify the fixed mindset, okay? So when children are faced with challenge and faced with struggle, what do we do to respond? So do we take the challenge away in terms of, do we do it for them? Okay, so do we step in and take the struggle away? And why do we do that? Is it to avoid the unpleasant emotions that might come because the child can't do it? So are we doing it for them to avoid that? Are we taking control to do things in our way, the way we would do them? Okay. Are we doing it because it's quicker? Simple as that. If we do it, it's quicker. Okay, so I'm just laying down different points here. So are we avoiding the emotions? Are we doing it because it's quicker if we do it? Are we sort of being in control and doing it our way? Or this other one, which I resonate with quite a bit, is the feel of wanting to be needed. Okay, so my purpose as a parent is I want my child to need me as a parent, and that's how I felt with my son. Okay, so in terms of those areas then, how does that magnify a fixed mindset? Let me give you some ideas. Okay, so if we do something for a child to avoid the emotions, we want children to experience unpleasant emotion, because otherwise they won't be able to regulate. Okay, and what I tend to find when I'm working with children, if we step in and take challenge away and take struggle away, they're not internalizing problem solving, flexible thinking, regulating emotion. Yes, we can guide them, but to physically do it for them, we need to allow them to experience struggle. And I think it's because we perceive struggle to be a bad thing and something quite negative. as a parent, we step in to cushion it, but actually we're building ourselves a bit of a landscape there. Because what I tend to find is, as children grow up, they form habits. So if we step in and take things away, do they then ask for help quite quick? Okay, so they ask for help, will you do this for me, or will you help? And really what they're saying is, can you do it for me? So they create habits around the responses that they've had. So that's the first one. We don't want our kids to feel constantly unpleasant emotions, but they have to experience how that confusion, I don't get it, could become curiosity. I want to know how to do it. So we need to role model that language. I can see you're confused at the minute, and I get it. And the reason why, it's because it's unfamiliar. But let's find out why. Let's be curious about it. Yeah, so find out more information, because then that's where the growth comes. So that's the first one. The second one is doing it because it's quicker. And I call it the Amazon effect. And I think we live in a culture where things are so fast and pacey. Amazon, you get your books your next day. Just Eat, food in half an hour. We're constantly providing entertainment. So children are on devices, and they're scrolling for entertainment, or they're watching videos and things. And I remember as a teacher, wet play was a nightmare because children didn't know how to be bored. They wanted to be entertained. And it was that idea of actually not knowing is okay. So why do we want them to be quick? And what sort of information are we giving by speeding them up? It's almost like they need to be able to do it quick. And actually slow is okay. Because actually when something's unfamiliar, it takes time. If you imagine learning how to swim or learning how to drive a car, yeah, you have 6 months of lessons for a 45-minute test. It takes time. And when we do things for them to do things quick, they sort of lose patience with things. Okay, when it comes to them doing it, they might start giving up quickly. Okay, and just jump to a conclusion, I can't do it. So that's another thing. The control thing, and this was a little bit me. And control can be quite a battle, because as a parent, I like to be in control, but also children like to be in control too. And just put yourself in a child's shoes from the moment they wake up in the morning to the moment they put their head on a pillow at night. How many instructions do you think they get in a day? From leaving the house to going to school to coming back, they get a lot of instructions. Okay, so in terms of control, sometimes we need to pass the control back. And I'll give you a bit of a tip here. So if you've got children around and they hear your tip, you might want to just send them out a little minute. So this is what I do in terms of controlling time. So if you've got a child who is unable to regulate when you ask them to come off a device, for example, or ask them to come away from a park, yeah, when you've spent time there, give them the control. So you might say to them something like, do you want to come off that now or in 10 minutes? So you're pushing the ownership back to them. And they're bound to choose the 10 minutes, okay, because it's what it might be with something they're really enjoying doing. And then that time starts ticking up to the 10 minutes. And you might say after 8 minutes, oh, you've got 2 minutes of your 10 minutes. Okay, so you just remind them. And I found with my step-grandchildren that it works really well, because they've chosen the 10 minutes. But actually, if you want them to come off something at 7:30, you might say, do you want 10 minutes at 20 past? So you're actually still in control, but they're in control. So actually that language around it might avoid the taking them away from something quite quickly. So that's another tip. Just give it a go and see how it goes, but it works for me. But it is that idea of, we want them to be independent, and giving them control over things allows that independence. Okay, and sometimes life is so fast and we want things done, we take that away. Now, the wanted to be needed bit, okay, and this was definitely me. And in terms of this one, we want children to be resilient. So when things don't quite go there to plan, we want them to bounce back like a ball. And resilience, we have different levels. And we might respond like a ball and bounce back, and what's this teaching me? Or we might be more like an egg and be more fragile. Okay. Now, if we step in and solve problems for our children quite regularly, the likelihood is as they grow, and I've seen this in late teens and young adults who then go off to college and university. If as parents we jump in quite regularly because we want them to like us, we want them to need us in that sort of way and appreciate what we can do, actually what we're doing is setting themselves up, because then when they go off and they're faced with hurdles in life, and life is full of them, they don't know how to handle it because their support network isn't there instantly to step in and do it. And I see so many students drop out of uni because of that. Okay. So in that terms of being needed, it's about coaching them through experiences, not doing it and solving it. Okay. So I hope that I've sort of tried to come at it from my parent perspective there, but bringing in a bit of mindset. We want the trees on the right-hand side, but to get that, they'll need to go through the struggle and building the resilience and regulating emotions. Okay. Now, with that comes language, and that's where, oh, just click on there. I'm going to bring this model back in. So if you remember the ETR model from last week, when life does happen, we will start thinking about it and we will react. And we'll react with our emotions and our behaviours. And if we're having a fixed mindset after said event, we will also develop words. So the thoughts that we have, the fixed mindset thoughts we have, become the words that we speak. Okay. And it's about becoming familiar with our fixed mindset language that we say as parents, as adults, as individuals. But then we start to recognize the fixed mindsets around us. And once we recognize ours and work on our own fixed mindset, we can create support and channel and reframe the mindsets of those around us. So bringing back the learning blocks that we looked at last week, just have a little think. What does your fixed mindset language sound like towards your key learning block barriers? Okay. So I shared last week that mine used to be challenge and effort. So queen procrastinator when it came to things that were hard and struggle, because I worried about people's judgment. So my language towards challenge would be, I don't think I can do that, it's too hard, or I've never done it before, and what if? Or it might be, if I don't do a good job, what will people think? So as I started going a bit older into work and things like that, if I was faced with something that was adapting to change, I would really hold back. I wouldn't go for it. I'd hang back and be a bit of a meerkat looking around, what's everyone else doing? And then maybe I would step into that experience. It's about feeling safe. All these learning blocks, we need to feel safe to embrace them. The fixed mindset is trying to keep us safe, ironically, and therefore they can become our barriers. But what language do we use around them? So just have a little think for yourself. What's your language around the fear of failing when things go wrong? Your language, what's your little inner critic say to you on a regular basis? Yeah, where does it stem from? And it's interesting, I was talking to a 26-year-old the other week, and she was telling me her fixed mindset language. And when we delved back, it stemmed from when she was about year 2 or year 3. And I said to her, I said, it's interesting because when you listen to that voice, you go into your 7-year-old self for advice. And she looked at me and she went, yeah, right. I said, if your 7-year-old self was sat next to you now, would you listen to her and do things based on what she said? And she went, no. I said, but that's what you're doing. And it was that realization of, right, I'm an adult, I need to take back control. And actually, that was part of my life. You can't change history. It's there, okay? What you can do is accept it. And actually, it created who she was. She's referring back to when she was that little sapling under the rain cloud bit. but actually she grew because of it, and it was looking at the strengths that she'd grown because of that. Okay, so mindset language, let's have a little look. I'm just mindful of time. Yeah, we're fine. Right, so the continuum. So we're looking at the fixed mindset part of the continuum, and we've already got a few examples on here. I can't do it, I won't do it, I don't want to do it. So they're your common sort of quick phrases. I've brought a few more up here, so let's have a little look. Things always go wrong for me. Yeah, so that's one where it's quite common, and it's almost like you're setting yourself up for something to go wrong. And you might know people, you might do this yourself, or you know people, and it's interesting that when we say this, it's almost like we're setting ourselves up for it to go wrong. And you might hear people say, see, I told you it would, when it does go wrong. And it's the word always there. That's a key word. Because when we use words like always, and there's another one going to crop up in a minute, you make that situation permanent. So you might be experiencing struggle, which is good actually with a growth mindset, because we grow from struggle. We grow when things are tricky. We don't want easy. But the fixed mindset, we're going to see it go wrong because that's what we're used to. Okay. But if we're telling ourselves that, the likelihood is we'll do things, or we'll not approach it in maybe a strategic way. We're letting the emotions drive it. Okay. The next one example I've got up here. Why can't I be more like? Yeah. So that idea of comparing our abilities to others, the way we look to other people, people's characteristics. So we compare our characteristics with other people, and it is about that sort of like we put ourselves down. Why can't I be like that? Okay, so if you do that to yourself, or do you hear children or people around you do that one? These are the common ones I'm popping up here. I'm not good enough. Now that's really common in schools. I hear that a lot. Okay, and we have this sort of like, I'm not good at it. So the obvious thing is children are really saying I'm bad at it. They're flipping it really, but by saying I'm not good at it, what they're telling you is I'm bad at it. And it's that idea of good and bad. Okay. So our language to children, do we say, oh, you're really good at that? Yeah. So it's the way we talk in terms of, oh, you've worked really hard. I can see you improving there. You're making progress. So we even take the word good out of it altogether. Okay. Next week's is about how we respond. So I don't want to go too much into that. Today is more about our fixed mindset language, which I want us to connect with. And then next week, we're going to flip the script a little bit. So what's this one? What if? Okay, so we're back to the what if in. What if I make a mistake? What if I fail? Again, very common. And the fixed mindset's trying to keep us safe again, because we're predicting the future without any evidence. Okay, and remember, the growth mindset will look for evidence of truth. So straight away, we can challenge that. We can start challenging what if straight away, because the first thing you should be saying to yourself is, what evidence have I got of that I've just said that? Are thoughts facts? Yeah, we tend to believe them, but is it factual? Okay, so if you hear your child saying a what if, straight away it's, oh, you just said what? How do you know that's true? And I've not had one child come to me and say, I know it's true because, okay, it's often, what if I fail? Or what if it all goes wrong? Think I'll never be good at it. How do you know? What evidence have you got? Okay. And actually, it's about perception around failing and mistakes that we need to shift if that's the case, because they might be deeming them to be bad. Whereas the growth mindset, remember, is looking at a mistake as an opportunity. This is too hard. Again, really common one. Okay. And I'll come back to that one because I'm going to give you a bit of a hint and a tip in a second. So this is too hard, really common. And I'll never be able to. Okay, so that idea again, a bit like always, we're making it a permanent thing. So I'll never be good at, I'll never be able to. You don't know tomorrow, next week, next month that you will be able to. You're telling yourself you won't. And therefore we tend to stop putting effort in, because then we think, I'll never be able to do that. So what's the point? Okay, so it almost gives us an excuse not to do it. So here's some really common examples of the fixed mindset voice in action, and they can become our thoughts, but we could then end up saying them outside. And if we're saying them, we're influencing. Okay. The more we learn to reframe. So, for example, I used to say this is too hard quite a lot because I avoided challenges. Whereas now it's like, oh, this is going to be tricky, but do you know what? I'm going to learn from it. Or there's a word I'm going to flag up in a minute, and it probably will underpin most of your fixed mindset challenges. Okay. So I'm going to give you, and I can email this as well. If anyone wants this emailing, so you're not having to write it all down, I could email this next slide to you. I'm going to give you a little process to get you connected with your fixed mindset, for you to practice it for yourself, but then for you to understand others more. It's called the NEAT process, and it's an acronym of NEAT. So the N stands for normal, okay? So when your fixed mindset comes out to play, I want you to ask yourself a question. Is this normal? And I can guarantee the answer will always be yes, because it's who you are. It's the way your brain's been wired. It's your experiences, and we're all unique. Okay, so your fixed mindset will react in the way it does. So the first question is it normal? Yeah. But then I want you to just highlight to yourself, it's not being helpful, but it is normal. Okay, so I know you're there. You're not being helpful, but I can hear you. You're sort of there with it. Okay. The E stands for expect it. Remember, it's 5 times stronger and 16 times faster. So expect it to come out and do its job. And actually, it's trying to keep you safe. Somewhere along the lines, it's trying to keep you safe and protected. Okay. So it is going to react. So expect it to do that. Okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. The next two are actually when we then start to shift. So it's normal, expect it, and accept it. So by accepting it, we can then work with it. Okay. So I can hear you. You're telling me this, not being very helpful. But do you know what? I expected you to come and tell me because I'm about to do this, whatever it might be you're doing that's pushing your comfort zone or whatever. And I accept it. I accept you trying to keep me safe. Okay. So you're sort of like having a little bit of a challenge with it. Now, the last bit, I love this, okay, because this is what we need to do. We need to take care of it, okay? So at this point, we start to calm down the fixed mindset. So that fixed mindset can make us spiral into becoming quite emotional or react in certain ways. By taking care of it, we then have a plan of action, because if we're calming that down, we can think things through more logically and rationally. And it says at the bottom, respond rather than react. The fixed mindset is a reactor. The growth mindset is a responder, but we need to give it time to respond. And the only way we can do it is to calm the fixed mindset down, because it will override. Now, I'm going to flag up a word here. When you're taking care of your fixed mindset, I want this word to flash up in your brain with flashing lights around it, like it's some sort of Hollywood sign, and remind you. Because probably the reason why you're having a fixed mindset moment is because whatever you're doing, there's something around it and it might be unfamiliar. Okay. So that word unfamiliar, you can start using it in your inner dialogue. So you're calming it. Do you know what? The reason I feel like this, I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable, is because I'm about to do this and it's unfamiliar, or I'm about to have a conversation with somebody and it might feel unfamiliar because you don't know them, or it might feel a bit uncomfortable leaning into that conversation. It could be something at work. It could be anything at all, but I can guarantee there'll be something linked to this, and it will also underpin some of your children as well. Okay, when they're finding things is too hard, it's because it's unfamiliar. Why can't it be more like them? It's because they've got more familiar with it. They're good at it, or they're improving at it, and they're comparing themselves. At the moment, that's unfamiliar to them. So when you start connecting with your fixed mindset, this will become a root cause. Okay. But reframing, something we're going to look at next week, I'm just going to finish off, can be quite a simple thing to do. And I'm just going to give you an example here. A simple reframe. Do you know when you've got things on and you say to yourself, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do, and it becomes a list of things that it's fast pacey. We're living in this life of fast paciness. I've got to, I've got to, I've got to. A simple flip, that 3-letter word, I get to. Just stop and pause and just think of how that's just changed your perspective. And this is what I'm going to put up at the bottom. Often, how often do we dress our opportunities as stress when they are in fact blessings? Okay. Oh, I've got to take the dog out for a walk. I've got to take the kids to football. Then I've got to go to my mum's, whatever it might be. I get to take the dog out for a walk. I get to go and watch my kids play football. I get to go and sit with my mum. Very different. Okay. So that's another hint and tip. If you find yourself saying I've got to, just flip it to I get to. But we'll be doing more of that next week. Okay. So I'm just going to finish this week's session with a little story. And it's called Walking the Talk. And this is how it goes. One time, a woman came to Gandhi and asked him to tell her overweight son to stop eating sugar. Madam, he replied, come back in 3 weeks' time. Surprised at this request, she nevertheless returned with her son 3 weeks later. Gandhi looked at the boy and said, stop eating sugar. When the boy had left the room, the mother turned to Gandhi and asked why he hadn't said that 3 weeks ago. Gandhi replied, Madam, 3 weeks ago, I myself was eating sugar. Food for thought. Okay, so another session introducing language, and we're going to build on that next week. So next week, it's how we respond to the fixed mindset. So when we hear it around us, what do we say back in order to push to become more growth orientated? Okay, so for example, when someone's struggling, some people are inclined to say something like, well, just do what you can. That magnifies the fixed. Okay, so I will be sharing with you some ideas and hints and tips on actually to help change perspective of the person who's having the fixed mindset. So this, between now and then, I want you to really connect with your fixed mindset phrases, get familiar with them, okay? And we're going to start reframing next week and start, I get to, using that one. Brilliant. Another one done. I'm loving these sessions. I hope you are too, but that's the focus for this week. If you